We are going live. We are live. Welcome. Happy May 17th.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you guys doing?
Good. Just came hot off the airplane to do this. That's how dedicated, Matt, I am to the Data Center Podcast.
You are dedicated. For our audience, hey, welcome to the Moor Insights Strategy Data Center Podcast. My name is Matt Kimball. I'm the host this week, but not the host every week. I'm going to go right to left. I am joined by my co-hosts. In the middle here is Senior Will Townsend, straight back from the lovely town of, well, I guess Dallas was your last place you were because of flight. We'll stick with Dallas. Yeah. And then the ever present Paul Smith Goodson. I don't know that we need an introduction for Paul. He's just Mr. Cool all the way through.
Paul needs no introduction in any circle.
None. Hey, so we're on episode 23, another prime number. Did I say? Yeah, May 17th. 23, another prime number. I'm stuck on prime numbers today. And today we got a bunch of stuff to talk about regarding data centers and data center technology. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about ARM, AMD, and Intel. I want to throw that in there. We're going to talk about RSA Conference, which Will was fortunate enough to join last week or the week before. IBM, VDURA, and HPE and Marvell. Lots of good stuff. I could come up with some quirky and funny intro, but that's boring. Let's just jump in with this disclaimer. Don't take anything we say as investment advice. Please, for the love of God and everything that's right in this world, do not trust us when it comes to financial advice. We're giving you our opinions on what's going on in the market. This is entertainment purposes only. We are all losing money hand over fist on the market, even though it's up. We're losing.
The Dow is up to 40,000 up to 40,000, right?
40,000, yeah. And my portfolio is down. Go figure. Anyway. So don't take advice from us. That's the point. And before we start, if you like what you're seeing from us, click the like button. Join us every couple of weeks. If you don't like it, blame it on Will and tweet it out. Okay. Yeah. All right. With that said, we mix things up every week. We're going to start with the Mr. Cool Paul Smith Goodson jumping off with lab trains AI like a human. I like a rat better, but we're going to go with like a human.
Lab rats. We like lab rats. Yeah.
You are up, my friend.
IBM recently put out a paper called Large Scale Alignment for Chatbots. And it's a new way of teaching AI models how to understand and follow directions. And it makes the training process a lot faster and easier. And it's very effective. I can give you some stats a little bit later on. But it also democratizes the development of large language models. Now we build them, we make generative AI models, and then nothing happens with those. They don't get cranked back into the original pot. But the way IBM has got this training developed, that information that an expert puts in will actually go back into the system to be reused again. So it kind of makes it smarter and smarter as we go along. Dr. Ruchir Puri is the chief scientist of IBM Research, and he's an IBM fellow and the vice president of corporate technology. He has a kind of a unique way of describing how today's models are built. He said, imagine that you put everybody into a room and you put a big blender in the middle of the room. And you get people, everybody throws in their data, everybody throws in their documents, everybody throws in their text and their JSON if they've got it, whatever they've got, they throw it in that blender, and you push the button and turn the blender on, and then you hope that you got the results you wanted. If you don't, then everybody starts throwing in more data, and you kind of start the process over again. Now, that's kind of a descriptive way of describing how they're doing it, but it rings pretty true. But IBM has come up with a kind of a really nifty way of training models. First of all, it does work kind of like human learning. then you get a big collection of examples and instructions and responses, and you organize these into different categories. Like you have one pile that's knowledge, one pile that's foundational, one pile that's compositional. In the knowledge section, you'd gather textbooks, maybe on finance, and then you'd filter it down even more on finance. You'd have finance documents, finance text, finance books, etc. So you've got those three categories: knowledge, foundational, and compositional. And then they train the model using those examples they do it in multiple steps. The first step focuses on teaching the model, general knowledge. You've got all that general knowledge in those different categories. And then the second step is that they teach the model how to use that knowledge and how to follow instructions and complete the task. So it's kind of like, you give one of your kids a book to read about rules of the road and how to drive and stuff like that. And then eventually you go out and take them out and actually let them do some real-time driving. So it's kind of the way that this training works. IBM uses this training method. They're calling it Instruct Chat now. Instruct Lab, I'm sorry. And but the paper was based on Lab. So anyway, they use this lab technique to train one of their own models, the Granite 13B Chat V1, I think. And when they first announced that Granite 13B in September 23, it wasn't all that great in one of the benchmarks, and wasn't very good at having like back and forth conversations. They'd kind of forget things that didn't have a history on it. So when they did the training with using this lab technique, it improved quite a bit. It was, I think it was called a multi-turn bench benchmark, and I think it's got like 12 different benchmarks in it, but it improved substantially. And then they ran some of their smaller models. They trained them against benchmarked them against the Llama models, Meta's models. They did they benchmarked a 13B against a 7B in the Meta model, and then they basically had a lower weight model than what they were benchmarking against, and they came out superior in every category. So it's a very effective way of training models, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this technique as we go forward.
So Paul, when you talk about training AI like a human, so when I go into hold Granite aside for a second, when I go into like ChatGPT, right, I can say, hey, write a 4-paragraph paper about Napoleon in the voice of Matt Kimball, and it will, kind of create something in my voice. This goes beyond that, right? This allows you to actually have a dialogue.
That's like a multimodal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see the kind of the real world use cases, like businesses, consumer, business consumer facing? Where do you see the real world uses for this?
We're just beginning to see the AI and where it can go, and over the next 4 or 5 years, I mean, these models are going to get more and more powerful. They're chasing AGI, the model that has the equivalent capability of humans. And I don't think we're really that far from it. I know OpenAI has done a lot of really, really neat stuff. They're out on the bleeding edge of models, and you have to really be careful with stuff like that. And of course they are. But I mean, we're going to see models that are going to be able to do just amazing things from a scientific standpoint, from a business standpoint, planning standpoint. We're just starting to see a glimpse of what's going to be capable if we don't get shut down by the government.
By the government. You don't know how many times I've said that in my life.
What's the term? I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Right?
Yeah.
Here to help. I just think of that Tom Cruise movie, Minority Report.
Yeah.
Like it knows what you're going to do. The gov or the feds or the authorities know what you're going to do before you do it, and proactively arrest you or put you out of commission.
Look how much AI has changed the whole world in like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's definitely it's like an exponential change.
Mm-hmm.
It's dramatic.
We're going to see another exponential change at some point.
Yeah, I mean, we thought the cloud was something that was disruptive, right? And when I look at sort of the slope with compared with Gen AI compared to cloud adoption, I mean, it's like you need mountain climbing equipment, right, to ascend that slope. So it's super exciting, but there's going to have to be regulation, and that's the big wave that I'm seeing right now. It's just regulations, and big technology companies coming together and different parts of the world coming together to really to formulate what the guardrails are going to be here to make sure that it's ethically managed, right?
I'm gonna predate you by about 10 years, Will, and say I'm gonna draw a parallel to the internet.
Okay, I think that's fair. Yeah, that's the internet.
The cloud one is good too. I mean that's great. Yeah. But if I go even further back, I think about how much the internet changed the life of everyday people, right? And it worries me because for as powerful as the internet is, it has introduced a lot of bad into this world. And so to what you're saying and kind of echo and even put a bigger emphasis on that, it's scary to think about where all this could go. Without the right guardrails. But then there's the line, then there's the question of where's that line, that demarcation between, protecting the good of the, people, if you will, and being, overly restrictive. I don't know. That's a hard line and a hard kind of needle to thread, I think. But anyway.
All these companies are working on, what kind of called the frontier models. It's, models that are out beyond where we're at right now, and I think we may get to a point where we need to we're going to build these models. We need to have a safe place where we can build them. Maybe build them on a space station or something. But because I mean,
Elon Musk says people are going to be living on Mars in 30 years. So maybe
there you go. We could do it on Mars eventually, right?
There we go.
Or the moon. I think we're going to the moon
all day. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Will. Sorry.
I was just going to say, could be the moon as well. Moon's a little bit closer, right? So,
That's boring.
Moon's so boring, so passe, so 60s.
Please. All right, let's move on. Red hot chip market. So I don't have a lot to say here. Sorry, Paul. I'm coming in focus here. I don't have a whole lot to say here. I want to bring emphasis to the fact, or put a spotlight on the fact that, AI has been speaking of AI, it has been a boon for everybody and for every company, and especially chips. In the last couple of weeks, Intel has reported numbers are up. It looks like it turned the corner thanks in part to AI and its foundry business. AMD reported numbers up year over year, incredibly up. Sequentially, not as much. ARM, year over year, 47% increase in revenue, 60% increase in licensing revenue, and a 37% increase in royalty revenue. You can see that royalty's been where things have been at.
Yeah, did you catch Rene Haas he was on CNBC? It was, I think, right around earnings time, and he just killed it, right? And really spoke to what ARM is doing to sort of fuel a lot of this activity, right? So
it's crazy. 5 years ago, we would talk about the chip market, and essentially was AMD. Oh, and by the way, let's not forget NVIDIA. How the heck can I?
How could we forget about NVIDIA?
But you know, 5 years ago it was AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel, or more appropriately, Intel, NVIDIA, and AMD at the time. ARM was a failed experiment at the time. RISC was something that, you know, dinosaurs in IT spoke about, right? Nobody really talked about RISC. And they're really, I mean, while you had the Broadcoms and the Marvells and the companies that were doing function-specific silicon, the chip industry as a whole was kind of like stagnant. Now it's all that everybody talks about. And you see all of these newcomers coming into the market, right? Not so new. Ampere is lighting it up, right? You've got Untether AI, which is doing AI inference. Qualcomm has jumped into they've been in the inference business, but they're really making noise. So much going on. It makes me wonder, you know, what is the future of technology? I'd like to get your thoughts on this, guys. What does the future of technology look like, and the future of kind of the chip market look like? 10 years from now, are we going to be talking about AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel, or is it a new set of players that are, you know, not just challenging, but maybe beating these giants? I mean, what's the world look like in your minds?
I mean, I'll start, Matt. You know, there are companies that are sort of taking the best of both worlds. So EdgeQ is a company that's putting an LTE and a 5G base station on an SoC. They're using RISC architecture. They're using ARM. So it's like, you know, they're pulling different architectures, putting them together, creating net new value add. Now, I'm not an engineer. I like to play one on TV sometimes. And I'm assuming that the EdgeQ folks have a reason and logic for why they're doing that. But what's exciting for me is to see, you know, how other companies are going to start putting some of these building blocks together and deliver net new value like EdgeQ.
Yeah. What do you think, Paul? I mean, you're the smartest one on this podcast.
Well, you know, I mean, we were talking about how AI is going to impact different things, and it's definitely going to impact, you know, chip design even more so than what it's right now. Not only designing the chips, but being embedded in chip processes, even maybe some AI functions and models inside the chip. It's doing some magic things, you know. So
it's funny, you know, because when Google announced by the way, they just announced a TPU, a new version of Trillium. But when they announced their CPU back a few weeks ago, they didn't talk about how many cores. They didn't talk about clock frequencies. They didn't talk about memory and cache. They just said it's available, and here are the workloads it supports, and come get, you know, buy your instances eventually of, you know, 4 vCPUs, 8 vCPUs, whatever the case may be, right? But they're not even talking specs anymore, which to me is the ultimate in commoditization. It has become a utility. Like, you turn on water, you turn off water, right? You utilize electricity, and you pay for the kilowatts you consume. It's kind of going away completely. And it with that level of abstraction from consumers. And by the way, when you go out and buy laptops today, who really is paying attention to the latest specs, right? They know they want the latest Dell or Apple or whatever the case may be, right? But who's really paying attention? And that's bleeding into IT as well. This is all becoming, you know, layers of abstraction that are kind of not dumbing down, but enabling IT folks and consumers to focus on things that are far more important to them. It's going to be fun to watch. I do think it's going to be a world where you have a whole new set of players that are not necessarily dominating, but certainly challenging the norm. And we haven't even talked about quantum and what that means. I mean, right? But it's going to be an entirely different volume, and that's fun. It's going to be fun to watch how these giants kind of evolve and stay relevant as, you know, the world moves at breakneck speed. Anyway, I could go on this. Because chips are only interesting to me, let's move on to the RSA, which is interesting to everybody because security matters. And Will, I believe you are up, kid.
I'm up, Matt. Thanks for the setup there. So, I spent the entire week. I didn't wimp out. I didn't leave on Wednesday. I went the duration through Friday. And funny story, I was staying on Nob Hill, and President Biden decided to do a fundraiser across the street from my hotel. So it made for a very interesting exit on Friday morning. I got up at the crack of dawn. I made it safely to the airport. It's all good. But RSA Conference, man, what can I say? No surprise. Gen AI, big topic. Lots of companies talking about it. I spent time with Microsoft and their security team. Copilot for Security went GA back in April or May. I'm forgetting now. But with 6.5 Media, I did some video work with two of their executives sort of talking about what they're doing with Gen AI. And, and from my perspective, just kind of at the surface, very high level, I see two kind of values that are quickly emerging when you apply Gen AI to security and SOC, operational management and that sort of thing. And one is onboarding. So Gen AI can more quickly onboard analysts that have maybe a modicum of knowledge. There's no secret that there's a shortage of security professionals worldwide. And the ability to use something like generative AI to be able to bring SOC analysts on board very quickly, get them acclimated, and improve their accuracy is huge. So I think that's one benefit. And then from kind of another perspective, and I'm losing my train of thought here because I'm on limited sleep, but it's when it comes down to situation report generation. And one of the biggest challenges whenever an organization is evaluating potential threats and then reacting to things like ransomware is getting the communication out quickly and getting that communication out to multiple stakeholders, legal, human resources, operations, you name it, right? And so I've seen some very, very compelling demos from Microsoft, from other companies, where using generative AI tools and natural language interface, you can very quickly and easily generate those SIT reports, SIT reps as they're called, and that tends to be a very tedious process as well. And so I see that as sort of the second kind of initial value, but certainly, generative AI is going to do a lot just to, at the infrastructure level, be able to harden security and that sort of thing. Dynamically, focus on policy control and whatnot. But so that's sort of my take on Gen AI. But more broadly speaking, I spent time with Infoblox. They're focused on DNS security. They had something around their SOC insights that unsurprisingly applies AI to drive better security outcomes. But the biggest takeaway that I came away from was the focus on organizations to prioritize security over feature or feature development, right? So Microsoft spent a lot of time at RSAC in a pre-event venue, talking about what they're doing with something called Secure Futures, their Secure Futures initiative. And what they're doing is they're prioritizing security over a new feature set. They're doing things like tying leadership compensation to MBOs that are focused on security outcomes. Microsoft is committing to have a deputy CISO embedded within every product group within Microsoft. So not just security, but think about Microsoft and how big they are, right? And the design around that is to ensure more closed loop, to improve the security of the products. And so it's a great model. Another initiative, the CISA design, Secure by Design, was discussed quite a bit as well. Fortinet came out, they issued a press release, and they're one of the first companies to take that pledge. And it's very similar to Microsoft. It's focusing on security. The Secure by Design also stipulates that certain things like multi-factor authentication should be turned on by default out of the box on any software product. And this is a crazy stat, guys. Do you realize that 30% of organizations, and it's just a very broad statistic that I've researched, 30% of organizations don't even deploy multi-factor authentication. That just blows my mind.
Shocking yet not surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basic security hygiene is lacking there. So, and there were a ton of other announcements. I'm working to get a Forbes article published. I'm hoping it's going to publish today, soon after our podcast. But I think, those are two, steps in the right direction, because security is got to be a team sport, and everyone's got to be, involved in this, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a human resources professional, or you're a SOC analyst, right? So that's my big take on the show. And I know, Matt, that security kind of, comes through your swim lane as well with compute and storage. But did you catch anything at the event that you found interesting?
Kind of like super high level. It's the same takeaway I think I had last year, and that is I'm overwhelmed at how large and how fractured the security market is. Mm-hmm. And as new usage models, new deployment models, new use cases, and new applications kind of make their way into the enterprise. I'm thinking about it from a data center perspective.
Yeah,
that opens up 4 new vulnerabilities, 5 new vulnerabilities, 3 new attack vectors, right? It's like they continue, and then you get these point solutions that created to address that problem, right? Mm-hmm. You have and companies go and they spend money on that problem in a portfolio of, sometimes hundreds of security solutions that, work independently, are managed independently or in siloed fashion, and become a complete headache for IT organizations. That's why I love to see companies like Cisco, like Microsoft, companies that work in enterprise data centers and have, kind of footprints in enterprise data centers, take leadership roles and kind of start bringing some consolidation of functionality, if not companies, under their umbrellas, that will hopefully make it easier for ITers, because there's not a CIO or a CISO or CSO or even an IT admin I speak to that feels as though they've got their security story down or their security posture down.
I read multiple surveys, 30-40% don't believe that they're prepared for a ransomware attack, as an example. And it's a real issue that needs to be addressed. And I think, I agree with you. Things are consolidating. I don't think it's going to get down to an organization will pick one security solution provider for all of their needs. When you look at XDR, endpoint, cloud, email, but if an organization can consolidate 50 or 75 point solutions down to a dozen, that's much better, and it's going to drive, from my perspective, better security outcomes. So.
Yep.
Did you happen to see anything about quantum safe while you were there?
I didn't, Paul, but I was hearing little rumors about quantum and that sort of thing. Did you catch anything in particular that you thought was pretty cool?
Just going back to kind of going around the bend here to get to a point, but encryption, just the hard encryption codes like RSA protects probably trillions of digital transactions every day. For email and credit cards and banking data and national security and everything. But back in '94, what started this all was Bell Labs mathematician named Peter Shor developed an algorithm that could theoretically crack large prime numbers. And when he published that, actually
there's Matt's prime number,
And RSA encryption is asymmetric cryptography, and it's susceptible to being hacked by anything that can break out the prime numbers. Mm-hmm. And that's what quantum can do. And IBM has got a system called Quantum Safe that they're building. It's pretty effective. It's got like 3 parts to it. It's got trying to remember the parts. Quantum Safe Explorer. It will scan all of the applications within an enterprise, and the source code, it'll identify anything that's quantum susceptible, and it'll do the inventory and make reports and stuff like that. It's got another part called Quantum Safe Advisor, and that provides root cause and migration recommendations. And it does a lot of scans of systems, and the last part is the what is the last part? The remediator, Quantum Safe Remediator, is actually the transformational part of it. Where this will actually go out and take the artifact encryption, like RSA or something, and swap it out for one of the post-quantum encryptions that will protect against quantum cracking. Anyway, I just didn't know if you heard about that or not.
Yeah, no, I hadn't. So very, very educational.
IBM seems to be everywhere.
They really do.
It's an amazing system. I saw the demonstration too. Really impressive. It would take, you couldn't assign enough people to go through and look at all your encryptions and change them out,
Yeah. Hey, on the subject of IBM, I want to do a quick shout out to Marcella for inviting me to the Austin campus on Wednesday, and I got to present to about 50 or so AR professionals that work in different parts of IBM, and it was fantastic to sort of share what I do on a daily basis and sort of best practices. So I want to thank IBM for that. But it's very impressed with that team and Dan O'Brien that leads that team as well. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Speaking of Dan O'Brien, actually not speaking of Dan O'Brien, we're going to jump onto Paul's next topic, and I'm going to say we're going to hit the speed round here.
We have to. We're running out of time. So
having fun conversations, but Qiskit 1.0, is that what we're talking about here, Paul?
1.0.
Prime number?
It's a software stack for quantum computing. It helps users create quantum algorithms and explore computational space within quantum computers and stuff. Qiskit's very important. It's been downloaded like 6 million times.
Oh, wow.
It's got more than 550,000 users, and it's been used to execute 3 trillion quantum circuits. So it's pretty amazing. And over a 7-year period, IBM has done over 100 iterations of Qiskit. They've had the last one jumping from 0.46 to 1.0. But it is just we're short on time. I can't go through all the features, but one of the features is they're going to semantic versioning, so that the versions that are going to come out now are going to be like x.y.z. X is the major version that'll be released once a year. Y is a minor version every 3 months, and Z is a patch version for bug fixing and stuff like that. So
just real quickly,
a lot of new, amazing. It's got some AI built into it to make this more effective, and it reduced the memory footprint of Qiskit circuits that are formed by like 32x, and that makes it. That means you can use that memory. You can build more circuits, and it's a lot faster and that type of thing. So Paul, a lot of new features. So,
Paul, for our listeners that aren't computer science majors, actually, not even forget that. Doesn't have to be. For our listeners and viewers who aren't caught up in quantum, can you give a quick overview of what on earth Qiskit does for the quantum equation?
Yeah, it helps the users build quantum circuits. It's a software development kit, that's what it is.
Okay.
They've got one called Open Chasm that is actually the program language for quantum computers, and Qiskit can then import and export Open Chasm, and the difference between Qiskit and Open Chasm is that I say it's a programming language, and a lot of engineers want to use the ones that design classical controllers and waveform generators, and they want different languages. They use like Open Chasm, so that can be converted. Some people need to actually developers, engineers need to work on the quantum gates for timing and work on the circuits. You can modify timing with those open chasm and pulse level gates and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
in fact, it's compatible with open chasm is kind of a big thing. So
Excellent.
it's basically a high level SDK that provides tools for creating, manipulating, and running quantum circuits.
Well, I'm very good at manipulating, but I haven't manipulated circuits lately, so I'll have to try. Moving on. Lightning round. Has AI made storage cool again? All right. So this is mine, I think.
I think it is. I think you are our storage analyst extraordinaire, my friend.
I would go light on the extraordinary thing. And I would go light on the analyst thing too, frankly. So yeah, no, let's just bring this up. There's a company that's been in the HPC space, a storage company that's been in the HPC space for a long time, Panasys, that they built their own parallel file system, have done PanFS, have done quite well with it, very well known in the HPC market, rebranded itself as VDURA to kind of reposition itself in the data management space for AI and kind of advanced workloads. Likewise, HPE just had a bunch of announcements around its block storage, GreenLake for block storage offering that really incorporate AI, tie to AI, and tie to the cloud. The reason I'm bringing this up is there's been a lot of movement of late. There's Vast out there with a $9 billion valuation, Vast Data. Weka with a $2 billion valuation. DDN is quite large. You've got VDURA, HPE. Obviously, Dell has a great solution. It's just amazing to me that storage, which has long been the most boring topic that anybody ever wanted to hit on, is exciting again. And it goes back to kind of what we're talking about with the chips and how kind of the underlying chip in architecture is becoming less interesting, and it's what you do with it.
Yeah.
Storage is the same thing, right? Hard drives are hard drives, or solid state drives are solid state drives. NAND is NAND. Whether it's regardless, right? It's all kind of the same underlying hardware. It's how you can manipulate that hardware through software that differentiates a Vast from a Weka, from an HPE, from a VDURA. And I think the realization that we live in this new data world, and it's how you manage and move and store and make available and protect data that is becoming so critical. I really don't have a lot of deep analysis on this. Just it's amazing to me to see such a rush, kind of obviously not to the degree of security, but such a rush of these what were traditional storage companies really moving toward kind of data management, and on the kind of traditional storage stuff. Even got to throw another one out there, Pura, which is has been a really hot storage company, is starting to see them focus more on kind of the overall data management experience. But anyway, just throwing it out there. If you guys have thoughts you want to throw in, that's great.
Yeah, just one. I want to throw one at you, Matt, and we'll go hit mine and we'll close it out. But how much of this in the storage space is window dressing to take advantage of the gold rush, and how much of it is AI driving true innovation in storage? I'm just curious.
I think a lot of it. I think it's a lot. Strangely enough, while you have to do the window dressing, I think a lot of this is actually the requirements of enterprise IT. Here's the deal, right? And this is AI is kind of almost the lagging indicator, believe it or not. When you go back to IoT and the distributed nature of compute, data is being generated everywhere. Before it was AI, it was analytics, right? And equally important, the ability to take all of this data that's that's distributed geographically, that is distributed in terms of structured, unstructured data types. The ability to take that data, cleanse it, tag it, put it in the right format so that it can be consumed by an AI model or by ingested by an analytics engine, absolutely critical. And the real, AI is obviously driving a lot of this because AI is being deployed in the enterprise. But AI absent, you still need to, there's still that requirement that exists within the enterprise.
Yeah.
To what you're saying, there's certainly a lot of window dressing going on. It's just natural, right? Marketing folks like me jump in and say, hey, there's an opportunity to sound smart. So we do that, right?
Or analysts like ourselves on inquiry calls with our clients, we ask the question, what's your generative AI plan? What's your right? So we perpetuate that as analysts, right?
Yes, we do. But there is a real underlying requirement. What VDURA did was no small undertaking. What VAST has established, how it's established itself, VAST data, is no small feat. And it's built not out of kind of smoke and mirrors. It's built out of real world deployments, right? I mean, you don't get a $9 billion valuation and cash positive as a startup in the billions simply by smoke and mirrors, right?
Exactly, or providing vaporware. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna cruise right into Will.
Yeah, we're gonna hit this one.
Paul was like biting at the chomping at the bit, but we got to jump into Will because we have 3.5 minutes before we turn into pumpkins, and I don't want any of us to.
And I fall asleep when I had that momentary lapse of memory on my RSA recap. I'm going to hit this quickly. Marvell's AI silicon. So there's been a lot of collaboration, Matt, between you and I and Patrick Moorhead, our fearless leader, weighing in to, I think the first one was Broadcom, right? And that was a Forbes piece that Patrick published. And then about a week ago or so, maybe a little bit longer, we published our take on Marvell. And really, I just want to direct the attention to our viewers and listeners to go hit Patrick's Forbes page and kind of read some of the kind of the insights that the three of us have brought into focus here with Marvell as well as Broadcom. And at the end of the day, just from my perspective, Ethernet is quickly becoming very viable, right? As an interconnect solution. I think Paul on a prior podcast, you brought up an interesting statistic that I think 80+% of the interconnects are InfiniBand, right? NVIDIA. But hey, that's pretty expensive stuff, right? So Ethernet tends to be a little more affordable. And Ethernet, I mean, it's been around for how many decades? 5, 6? I don't know. It's longer than I've probably been born. But yeah, so my point here is just want to direct our viewers and listeners. If you want to learn more about Marvell and Broadcom, go hit Patrick's page. But Matt, anything to add? And Paul, before we wrap it up.
Yeah, Paul, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Marvell, just like Broadcom, it's interesting because, again, going back to commoditization of silicon, and I say that, but it's not, because they're finely tuning these parts to fit very specific functions within a hyperscaler, to perform things like, consumer-based inferencing, right? Really interesting plays. Broadcom has made tens of billions on this. Marvell is making billions on it. People might forget, but kind of also looping back, in that first ARM rush where you had all of these ARM startups that were coming out and falling by the wayside. One of them was Cavium, a company that
I remember Cavium, man. That's a blast from the past.
Yeah, they built a part called Thunder, which was a really strong ARM part. HPE, I think, licensed it for its Moonshot platform way back when, along with AMD. AMD had an ARM part, but Cavium got bought by Marvell, and there is a whole lot of instant and CPU and compute-based knowledge within that organization. They can go in so many different directions. It's going to be fun to watch them kind of evolve that portfolio and all of that IP they have over the next few years.
For sure. Paul, close us out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know if you said it, if I read it, but I think Marvell is looking to double its market share by
Yep.
using AI.
Yep.
That's a pretty ambitious challenge, and they need to make sure that the products can meet all the diverse and evolving needs of the target market, because things will be evolving and changing, and means delivering pretty high performing solutions and integrating compute and storage and all those things together. So
Though, Paul, it could be interesting because I draw a parallel to like Supermicro, right? A company that has served the market well and did really well kind of under the radar for so long. And then something disruptive like AI comes along, and the revenue's up 500% or something like that, and or their stock prices, I forget, but I mean their revenues are through the roof. They can't build servers fast enough, right? And all of a sudden they've gone from the small OEM to the one everybody's watching. And I kind of look at Marvell and Broadcom in a similar fashion. There's a disruption going on in the silicon market that allows them to kind of create their own, kind of their own land grab, if you will, right? It's going to be fun to watch.
at the same time, Marvell needs to make sure it differentiates its offerings and gives clear value to the customer. So
yep, without doubt. Hey, listen, anyways, guys, this was a cool conversation. I'm going to repeat now what I said at the beginning. Do not trust us as far as investment advice, because whatever we're talking about, do not look at this and go start trading. If you do, you are foolish.
I feel sorry for
them. You're fools.
But thanks for listening in. This was a great conversation, guys. We'll do it again in 2 weeks. If you enjoyed what you listened to, hit the like button. If you didn't, still hit the like button. But trash Will on Twitter, like I.
If you don't hit it, we'll hit the like button. So.
Hey, y'all have a great weekend.
You too, buddy. Yeah. Bye.
Good.